Good
Yeah,
to go?
yeah, good to go.
Okay. I'm Harshada, a startup founder and data science entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience in AI, analytics, and digital strategy. I'm currently building affordable, practical tech solutions like a low cost hospital management system aimed at transforming how MSMEs and social enterprises use data. I'm especially passionate about nurturing talents from tier 2 and tier 3 cities and creating global opportunities that don't require migration. My mission is to make data driven decision making accessible, inclusive, and impactful, especially focusing on India this year. In that vein, we also worked with who I have today. We are honored to have Sriharsha Narasimhan with us today, a board director and former CTO of Aruba Networks. He also worked in HP Enterprises with decades of experience in enterprise technology and risk governance. He's a respected voice in cybersecurity strategy, advising organizations on how to strengthen cyber resilience, align digital risk with board priorities, and embed security into digital transformation. Sriharsha sir brings a unique boardroom perspective on managing evolving cyber threats in a AI-driven world. I got connected with Sriharsha. He was actually a tutor for us in my independent director course and was very impressed with his knowledge and his giving capabilities. So very honored to have you here. And thank you for agreeing to do these sessions. So we are planning a couple of sessions at least on cybersecurity, and we would be focusing on startup and businessmen. That's the agenda for these couple of sessions. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Harshada, okay, for hosting this series and then also having me as a speaker in this. Okay, it's kind of interesting that you're focusing on startups, okay, because I've had multiple journeys in both as a startup employee in a startup, okay, founder in a startup, and also the entrepreneurship within larger organizations, wherein you have the freedom to function as a individual, okay, and you're working as a startup there, okay, with a smaller group of people on specific initiatives, so that you're not looking as if, okay, you're part of the larger organization. So these experiences have brought in a very, very different perspective from my end in terms of what should be the way forward for any small business or startup, okay, in terms of corporate governance, execution, strategy, and many of these aspects. And cybersecurity is especially critical because if there is weakness or if there's not adequate focus on cybersecurity, it's very easy to get lost.
True,
And
and often ignored in the startup world, right?
yeah, and which is the truth in most of the startup organizations. Okay,
Correct.
there are too many balls that get juggled in any of these organizations, and the priority is going to be business valuation. Okay, and then somewhere down below the line is going to be the startup cybersecurity aspect,
Cybersecurity.
and risk is something that's least factored in. Okay,
Correct.
because when you talk about risk, it's more of what's the risk associated with business rather than everything else. Okay, and then including cybersecurity.
Right. Right.
That's the bigger challenge that we face.
Yeah, so let me start with the question, same vein. What are the major misconceptions of a startup? So it could be in deep tech, IT domain, or it could be in some other domain where you are just e-retailing on the net. What, sir, do you think are the misconceptions that founders have?
So let's set the baseline first. It doesn't matter what business you're in.
Mhm.
You might be in pure accounting and you're starting an organization. Okay. And there are very few businesses that exist today that don't have a digital footprint.
Correct.
Okay. And then if you don't have digital footprint, you need to be asking why. Okay. Given that scenario, it doesn't matter what organization you're creating or building or what small business you're part of. You always have a digital footprint. And the moment you have a digital footprint, you're prone to exposure. Okay. From a cybersecurity perspective. So from a misconception perspective or the challenges perspective, uh, I would classify that in two areas. Okay. One is we are too small a target.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing that pops up. Who is going to care about my startup or my organization? We are too small a fish, and there are enough organizations which are there, okay, which are more lucrative for cyber criminals.
Hmm.
Okay, but if you look at the trend that's there, okay, we'll discuss this further. Okay,
Yeah.
if you look at the trend that's there in cyber attacks, initially it used to be for the larger organizations. Okay, today, because there's a lot more tightening happening in terms of access, in terms of who gets in the organization, and there's a lot more cybersecurity efforts being put in the larger organizations, that cyber criminals are focusing on smaller organizations. Okay, and for them, it's as good a business as what you're starting. Your domain as a startup is going to be specific to the area that you're working on.
Yeah.
For a cyber criminal, their domain is crime, cyber crime. Okay, so given that, things like passwords, if I have strong enough password, that's good enough. Okay, there are specific industries which are risk prone, not everything.
Correct.
We don't have anything valuable for cyber criminals to look at. Okay, and some of the tools that we are using, like antivirus, okay, and the fact that we are hosting everything in the cloud is good enough. And these are things that I keep hearing whenever I get into a conversation. And these are the conversations as well I've tackled in the smaller organizations that I was part of.
Okay.
And the second part that's there is we underestimate the risk of cybersecurity or risk from cybersecurity.
Right. Right.
Okay. Because as a startup, we need to trust our employees.
Yeah, especially startups which are partly remote. Often startups don't work from a single office. They have different location. People are working remotely.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Okay. So you need to trust your employees, but you're not aware as to what their cyber awareness level is. Okay. You don't know whether they are going to click on some phishing link, or they have a very weak password, or they go and visit dark web, okay, malicious sites. So you really don't know what the exposure landscape is.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to cybersecurity. Okay. And the fact is, even the most stringent organizations or the most advanced organizations which have teams, they have a tough time in tackling this.
Yeah.
So given that, how do I prioritize? That's the bigger challenge that's there. And then as a startup, we don't have any formal policies or trainings related to cybersecurity.
Yeah.
We assume that whatever is offered by our service provider is good enough.
Correct.
And you don't need to change anything.
Correct.
Okay. And then you have budget constraints, you have resource constraints. You will pick somebody who is going to be the brightest person in your team, or you yourself as the leader is going to try to implement the cybersecurity policies.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So ultimately, what happens is you're left with the skills and judgment of an individual to strengthen the organizations. At the same time, you're left with the skills and judgment of an individual to weaken the organization as well.
Mm. True that. Yeah.
And this is the challenge that we face in every organization.
Be it small or be
Yeah,
it.
it doesn't matter how big it is. Okay,
Yeah.
so in my corporate world, okay, we used to have a cyber awareness month. In month of October,
Mm.
okay, every week there would be a series of trainings that we would be undergoing so
Mm.
that we hone our skills.
Mm. Mm.
But once a month is not enough. And in the corporate world, there are large teams which are focusing on building the fortress
Correct.
that's working.
Yeah.
And that privilege doesn't exist in small organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned both big or small, there is a threat. Why would a cyber criminal, focus or get to a startup? Is it more to just prove that they can do what they want, or I mean, what it just occurred to me that that would be an interesting question to think about.
Very true, very true. Okay, so again, is it something that I have seen, or is it a trend that's observed in the industry? Okay, we
Hmm.
need to start looking at both these aspects. Okay, because as a practitioner who has looked at risk, who has looked at cybersecurity, okay, in both corporate world and in the startups that I've been associated with,
Mhm.
okay, we have been very, very cautious. Okay, and then I personally have been very cautious in terms of what I'm clicking, what I'm seeing.
Mhm.
And this is a behavior that I have built over a period of time. Okay, now, if you ask me, okay, let me rewind and go back 20 years back.
Right.
Internet was new. Okay, and then at that point, we had a browser and there were very few people who could go on the internet. And the organizations that I was part of, okay, be it larger corporate or a smaller organization, we were firewalling and building the moat around our critical employee assets, the
Hmm.
whole employee network,
Hmm.
so that we don't have the ability, and not everyone has ability to go on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't do that today because we are heavily dependent on internet and the network, and without that we don't function. Okay,
Yes.
still we are required to protect our assets. Okay, one of the biggest threats that we have seen in from a cybersecurity perspective, or two threats I would call. Okay, one is phishing attack. We'll ignore the malware and other viruses, everything, because the quantum of impact and then the mechanism to detect them is a lot more efficient and easier now. Okay, so phishing attack and then ransomware. Okay, these are the two things that we want to look at. Okay, in both these attacks, before COVID, before the pandemic,
Mhm.
all these were relevant to larger enterprises.
Yeah.
Okay, and when there was a ransomware attack, it used to go into millions.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you look at the Verizon, okay, data breach report
Yeah.
that came out earlier this year, okay, they have shown a shift in the trend from less number of attacks, but the quantum of ransom being high to hundreds of attacks happening.
Hmm.
And then the ransom value is very, very low.
Hmm.
And this is similar to what a businessman is going to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, initially, I want to cash on the trend. So my cost is going,
Returns are going to be.
the returns are going to be higher.
Yeah.
After that, I balance with volume and then still try to make the same money.
Got it.
Cyber criminals are thinking about in the same way.
Got
So
it.
what is it that's making them look at the small organizations?
Hmm.
Okay.
More.
Very first thing,
Hmm.
okay, you don't have that much of knowledge of how to protect and what to protect.
Got it.
So there are a lot of vulnerabilities, there are a lot of weaknesses which are there.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's always a potential of a human error,
Hmm.
which triggers this cascading effect of a cyber attack.
Right.
Okay. Either you have a person who has got a weak password, or you have a person who has misconfigured one of your devices.
Hmm.
Okay. Or this person clicked on a link, okay, malicious link, which gave the cyber criminals the access.
Hmm.
Okay. Very rarely you have a situation where there are not people involved.
Hmm.
Okay. And if you look at the statistics which are there, I'm seeing numbers like 46% of attacks came from, were against small and medium businesses and startups.
Wow. Okay. Almost half.
Yeah, half. And that's scary
Yeah.
because if you look at the number of large enterprises versus number of small enterprises,
Hmm.
the number of companies in
Hmm.
startup and small enterprise world is much higher than the large enterprises.
Right. Right. And they are more affected, is what I
That's
would think. It's
that's true. That's true. And then from an attacker perspective, it's a low risk.
yeah.
I go in, if I'm successful, I finish my job and exit. If I'm not
Okay.
successful, I look at the next opportunity. I don't need to spend too much of time
Hmm.
because for them, the amount of time they invest in an attack
Correct.
is the cost for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Faster.
So we need to start thinking about cyber criminal as a business in
True.
order to build our defenses.
Wow. Yeah. A very different perspective. Good that
Yeah,
you
very
put on
true.
the table.
Very true. Okay.
So I had some questions listed out. Maybe I'll start looking at them and
Yeah.
then I'll open it up for the other participants. So
Mhm.
first question I got based on some discussions is from a person who is just starting out as a startup. How much security is enough was the question that I came across, and obviously I'm more into data, so I didn't have answer. Maybe I'll pick it up from you and pass it on to the person
Now
who has.
this is a very good question. Okay. Because and this is not just for the startups.
Hmm,
Okay, this is the question that's going to be posed
hmm,
in larger enterprises as well. Okay. And unfortunately, I haven't seen this question being posed much in the boards that I've
please, Roger.
worked with.
Okay.
Okay. So I start looking at this in three tiers because when you're looking at cybersecurity, you cannot make it a one-dimensional view.
Hmm,
Okay. So very first thing that we need to look at is people angle. Because in cyber security world, employees are your first line of defense.
yeah,
And in a smaller organizations, okay, they tend to be the only line of defense.
correct.
Okay. So I will start looking at having plans so that there's awareness that's there.
Hmm,
Okay. And there's training, there are trainings that's there.
hmm,
And today, when I walk into an organization, okay, the smaller companies, there's a very good possibility that even the receptionist is going to have a system.
yeah,
So our training is going to start from the lowest factor that's there in the organization.
hmm, hmm,
Your administrative staff, your secretarial staff,
hmm,
they all need to be aware to some extent, okay, as to what is it that they need to do to
hmm.
protect themselves and to protect the organization.
Right, right. Especially now with startups coming in the defense areas as well,
Yes,
more
yes, yes.
vulnerability
Okay.
come up.
That's a very, very valid observation because when I start looking at the defense organizations,
Hmm,
they are all air gapped. There is no direct access to internet.
yep.
Yet they are going to be experiencing espionage and attacks, okay, and then all kinds of issues are there.
Hmm.
And in my professional experience, when I've talked to many of these organizations,
Hmm.
if they have their presence in multiple cities, they are not connected there as well.
Hmm.
Okay. Because there again, there's a possibility that I can put a dark fiber and then connect the sites.
Yep.
They don't even trust the dark fiber.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's the level of paranoia that's there.
No, there should be. Yeah.
It should be that way.
Hmm.
Okay. Given that, it's not easy to implement that in
In
a
a startup.
different startup. Okay. So we need to be looking at this in a different way so that we protect everything that we have.
Hmm.
Ensure that we are not vulnerable.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
So, strong password is one of the aspects. Okay. And then multi-factor authentication,
Hmm.
because many of these things can be spoofed today.
True.
The moment you bring in a defense mechanism, the cyber criminals will find ways to work around that.
Yep.
Okay. And then the third thing that's people related is have some basic policies
Hmm.
of what you can do, what you should not do.
Hmm. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that becomes like small capsule. And then once you have this in place, you can start upgrading this, updating this on a frequent basis.
Yes. Okay. So how often? Yeah.
The second area is the systems that they use.
Hmm.
Today, you have bring your own devices, you have laptops, you have mobile
Yeah.
access.
Hmm.
So in all of this, you need some way of making sure that there's secure access. The devices are known devices and registered devices.
Hmm.
And you have antivirus, anti-malware, and some of these basic software.
Hmm.
That's
Always there. Yeah.
okay. And all these devices are regularly updated.
Hmm.
Okay. Because not updating the device software
Hmm.
is one of the biggest rooms for attack.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the third area that's there is the basic infrastructure that you have. You may be working in a shared environment wherein you have Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
How strong is that Wi-Fi? The password in that,
Hmm.
and what's the encryption mechanism,
Got it.
and what's your access to internet? If you're using something on the cloud, make sure that you're using all the security capabilities over there.
Hmm.
Okay. If you have a firewall of your own,
Hmm.
then or any infrastructural software or hardware, okay, the firmware in that, the software in that has to be periodically updated.
Yeah.
Okay, these three become the basic elements. And with that, okay, we should get to the starting point of having a better secure environment.
Hmm.
Because there's no way you can prevent a cyber attack.
Hmm.
You can protect yourself, you can defend yourself.
Right. Right. So I was going to come to that point that you made. Monitoring for a startup. They can't cover all the areas, is my view. But what are some red flags that to say that my digital setup is actually vulnerable? Things might go wrong. I should protect myself. So have you seen something in the startup arena?
Uh,
A lot of things have
yes, yes and no. Yes and no. Okay. Like the startup that I was part of earlier, a couple of years back, yeah, I found certain issues or vulnerabilities because I started seeing employees creating certain Teams channels. Okay,
Okay.
and then so yeah, things which are administrative related or administrator related. Okay, I didn't realize that they could do it.
Hmm. Oh,
Okay.
okay. The
Yeah,
action.
they were able to create their own channel. They were able to create their own distribution list.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and it in a way in startup, okay, you don't have any hierarchy.
Hmm.
You try not to build that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want as much freedom as possible, so that
Correct.
creativity is not muffled.
Correct.
Okay, innovation is not muffled.
Correct.
Yet you need some discipline.
Hmm.
And if you have your employees going and creating some of these aspects or some of these channels in Teams or in the collaboration or in SharePoint or any of these tools, you are starting to see new groups popping up.
Popping up. Yeah.
Okay, and new things popping up. Okay, that's one of the red flags.
Hmm. So that's, yeah, one major red flag.
Yeah. Okay. And unfortunately, in a startup world, you don't have that many tools,
Hmm.
nor do you have people who are very familiar with what tools to use where.
Hmm.
Okay. In most situations, we may not even have a SIM so that I get an aggregated view of what's going on.
Hmm.
Log analysis,
Got it.
because log analysis is the biggest asset that we have.
Got it. Got it.
Okay. So things that we need to watch for are unusual network activities.
Hmm.
Okay, devices which are not supposed to be on our Wi-Fi network or our network getting connected.
Hmm.
And this could be as innocent as an employee bringing their home device.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that's
can't
it.
give it.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then you have login failures.
Hmm.
We need to watch for that. And it's not very easy to discover any of these,
Hmm.
because if you look at all the cloud infrastructure that's there today, okay,
Hmm.
and it doesn't matter who your provider is. Okay.
Hmm.
Many of these dashboard, many of these capabilities are fragmented.
Hmm.
You'll need to hop around to multiple dashboards, multiple screens in order to get information. And you need to be very familiar with what to look for in
Hmm.
each of these screens.
Hmm. Hmm.
Reason why we have this challenge is because those tools evolved over a period of time.
Correct.
And while they're sitting together and delivering the services,
Hmm.
they are not, from a usability perspective, from an administration perspective, they are still in silos.
Got it. Got it.
Okay,
Somebody needs to bring all of that
that's
together.
correct. That's correct. So it doesn't matter whether you're looking at your antivirus statistics or you're looking at login statistics
Hmm.
or network. Okay, all of them are spread in different locations.
Hmm. Hmm.
Getting that into a single location and a single dashboard is the biggest challenge that we have.
Got it.
Okay, and that makes this a very, very tricky question. What are
Hmm.
the red flags? Where to look for?
Hmm.
I can identify 15 red flags. Now I need to know where I need to look for and what patterns to watch for.
Hmm.
And the biggest issue that we'll have as a startup is we won't know what our assets are.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, I don't have an inventory of my assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
People are using
Yes.
their own devices.
Yes. Okay. So the experience that I've had is the company given laptop is not working, so I'm going to be using my laptop for completing my job.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. And then I want to use my laptop because I'm going somewhere else.
Hmm. Yeah.
So the moment you have that flexibility coming in,
Everything goes.
everything goes for a toss.
True. 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 So that leads me to my next question, which is what should be the priority? So we talked a lot about our devices. As a startup, what should I secure? Should I secure my devices, website, my email, my customer database? How do I go about?
Tough question. Because from a startup perspective, okay, the challenge that we are going to see is the leaders in the startup may not be aware
Yeah.
of what what level of cybersecurity we need to have.
Yeah.
Okay. And then your priority, like when we started this discussion, okay, I mentioned that okay, a startup leader is going to be juggling multiple balls, and many of them are up in the air.
Hmm.
And priority is always business.
Correct.
Okay, because you need to make sure that you have cash flow
Hmm.
and you have innovation, and then you're able to showcase, attract customers, get customers.
Right. Right.
Okay, but in all this, if we ignore cybersecurity, then we have a challenge. We may get all this and then lose it overnight,
Hmm. Hmm.
because from a brand perspective, we build the trust in drops which come into the bucket.
Correct.
Bucket.
Yeah.
When we are attacked or when there's a issue, when there's an
Correct.
incident, we lose all of it in one shot.
One shot. Yeah. True. True.
So given that, before I start looking at any of my assets, I'll still prioritize my people. Because employees are the ones who are going to be using any of these tools.
Correct.
So my priority is going to be employees. Then after that, I'm going to be starting looking at the customer facing aspects. Your website, your email, anything that's going to bring in customer information.
Yeah, including the data that I eventually collect. Yeah.
The next thing that's there is my internal database, all my critical assets.
Correct.
I want to separate the two because your website is internet facing.
Yeah.
Your database doesn't need to be internet facing. So given that situation, I'll be doing it in 3 tiers. Employees, internet facing, or things that are exposed, and things, critical things, elements which are internal to us. Okay. And in my internal aspects, I also want to make sure that there's no room for somebody to create a new user. Because that's the biggest threat I'm going to have. Somebody creates a valid user, login. After that, the cyber criminal or whoever it is can log in.
Yeah.
Your disgruntled employee who left the company, you can still have access to your assets.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Few things to think about.
Yeah, good point. So I think you partly answered what I had to ask you next, which is how do I explain that, we should set up cybersecurity to a co-founder who is a marketing person, salesperson, who says, this kind of investment I can't make now. Let's do it some other time.
Very true. Okay. But before we get into that stage, let's take one step back.
Sure.
Because any business needs to have a business plan. And when you start thinking about the company that you're part of, you'll find that business plan is the last priority. Again, you're all eager to get started. You want to set up the company, you want to get the ball rolling and get into running stage.
Yeah.
Okay. So the moment you don't have a business plan, you don't have a comprehensive view of what you're up to. Okay. And business plan typically gets into formation when you are trying to do a pitch to an investor.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we start looking at that problem, and then we have a business plan that's there in the organization early enough. Now, nothing prevents me from having a line item in that which says cybersecurity is also a priority for us.
Risk management in general.
Yeah, risk management. Okay. So you bring in the risk management and then you identify these are the risks which are there. And then you can have some kind of preliminary SWOT analysis on that. And then you plug in cybersecurity as a line item.
Got it.
Okay. The moment you do that, you have subconsciously alerted your partners and your employees or whoever is going to be privy to this document that this is something that is important and we have intention of looking at this and working at this.
Right. Right. So instead of waiting for a investor meeting, do the planning earlier.
The planning. Okay. Yeah. Incorporate risk assessment as part of the plan. Incorporate a small line item for cybersecurity. And with that, you have your foot inside the gate.
Correct.
Now, you can start putting roadmap.
Hmm.
Every 6 months, I'm going to have 3 initiatives that I'm going to roll out.
Right.
Okay. Because if we don't take that approach,
Hmm.
it's always going to be in the back burner.
Got it.
Okay. It will never come to the forefront.
Hmm.
And you will realize that you have an issue only after you're attacked.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, the time when attack starts to the time it's discovered
It's critical.
is in months
Hmm.
or years. Okay, we have seen that the median being about 180 to 190 days.
Wow. That I'm
Okay.
assuming in a bigger
It's in a
organization.
bigger organization.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the smaller organizations, it may go undetected.
Okay.
Okay. Because we don't have any mechanisms to detect them.
Okay.
That's the challenge that we have. So when we don't have many things
Hmm.
which will help us, we need to look at how do I get to the point where I'm proactive rather than reactive.
Hmm.
And for a startup or a small organization, my starting point is going to be my business plan or the pitch that I'm building.
So true. So true.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I also wanted to, so it's already 6:40. We had decided we'll keep some time for question and answers and discussing what we are going to do in the next session. So the question that we had in mind was how safe are basic protections or free tools that are available on the internet for cybersecurity?
Look, first thing is I need when you get something for free, there's
Hmm.
no support for it.
Hmm.
There's no update. Okay, and there's no way I cannot trust something that's given free to me.
Right. Right.
Okay, because it it may malfunction,
Hmm. Hmm.
and when it malfunctions, I don't have somebody that I can reach out to.
Correct.
And we have seen that in all the tools that we have installed on our phones or on our laptops, whatever comes
Yes.
free. Okay, because from a human mindset perspective, we always want to use the free stuff before we start paying.
Tapping. Yeah.
Okay, so given that, that's the biggest challenge that's there. Okay, it may not be feature rich, it may not satisfy the needs that you have.
Correct.
Okay, when I look at the corporate world, the time they take to vet out the tools, what tool to use, where and when,
Hmm.
okay, and the integrations which are there, the interactions which are there,
Hmm.
yeah, they spend a lot of time on that, and we don't have that luxury in a startup world
Hmm.
or
Correct.
any small business world.
Yeah.
Okay, like for example, if I have a company secretary, okay, company secretary is going to say, okay, for my team, I may have 100% team. I'll be good enough to go with Google Cloud or Microsoft 365, and I'll use the capabilities which are there. Okay, and I'm okay with whatever is there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, that's the starting point that we'll have. And then when you talk about antivirus or anything, we start looking at the lowest,
Costs.
least expensive product.
Correct.
Okay, but the challenge that's there with least expensive product is you don't know what information they're extracting from your organization.
Hmm.
You don't know what vulnerabilities they have. Okay,
Yes.
which can be a conduit for
Hmm.
somebody to initiate an attack on me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Too
So
many variables are there.
yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit of what we did together, me being, so our organization being capable of building something on Python, and then your idea of making something for the startup world as such? How
So
far you
yeah, the starting point, okay, I would say is okay, you need a dashboard.
yeah.
Okay, just to gain visibility to all the users you have.
Hmm.
Okay. In the technology world, anyone who is an employee, okay, we call them as users. That's the common terminology that's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to know who are they and what's their access activities, okay, so that you are able to monitor. And
Got
then if you go back to the list that we talked about here,
Yeah.
it's people, devices, and then
Yes.
the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need that visibility in one single location, and that's the discussion that you and me were having, so that it becomes easy for a startup founder,
To look
okay,
at.
look at on a daily basis. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
So beginning of the day, they look at it and they see if there's any red flag in that.
Hmm.
Okay. If there's any red flag, they can go and talk to the individual employee.
Hmm.
Okay. Or see if they can find somebody to tutor them,
Hmm.
mentor them. Okay. So that way you start building that protection mechanism within the organization. Okay.
Cool.
And I've had challenges in terms of identifying which screen I need to be looking at.
Right.
Okay. Um, the challenges that I've seen, okay, is during pandemic, I had employees logging in from different locations, and one of the biggest threats that we had and question that we had is the employee working out of a competitive environment or
Right. Hmm.
and then trying to uh, I would say moonlight
Hmm. Working on multiple
multiple projects.
projects.
Okay, so that was one of the thoughts that we had when we started seeing movement of an employee
Hmm.
in different locations within the city.
Hmm.
Okay, so and then discovering that is not easy.
Correct.
Okay, because we had to identify what location, and then fortunately there are some tools, and then I was familiar with some of them. Okay, and then we were able to identify,
Hmm.
okay, take corrective action.
Hmm.
Okay, but otherwise it's very hard for anyone to have visibility.
Got it. Got it. So
So,
cool. So I see some questions being asked. Let me open up the floor. We have last 10 to 15 minutes. Let's go with the first question. Munmun, are you monitoring them? You can
I
have
saw
the
something.
people.
I saw something pop up in the chat window.
Yeah, some questions are coming in the chat. So just raise your hand, unmute yourself, and you can ask.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead and ask your question, Abhishek Sinha.
Yeah, hi sir. I'm Am. So as a cybersecurity analyst, I was working in this field from last 3.5 years. And
Mhm.
right now I just opened my own company, startup company, which is basically for like same cybersecurity related things. Like we are focusing on two things. First is phishing detection and the second one is website penetration testing. So for that, we just created one AI model. Right now it's working, it's deployed. So we are working on another model which is for web pen testing. It's a very big model. I want to ask like what price we will provide that to the customer so they can purchase it. And one more thing, like people don't understand the difference between like phishing and other malware thing. So this is a very big question from many users which I get. Like we are using antivirus which is coming free with the laptops. Why we
Yeah.
need them,
Mhm.
right?
Good one.
And as we know, like we can create any URL. Okay. If you open it, it will just capture your device info, camera, device storage, or even hack your whole device. Okay. Many things else we can do, like we can craft fake login pages. So people don't know whether they are opening a right UI like URL or not. So for that, we just created a fully automated AI model. But right now, the most important question is at what price we will provide it.
At what
Price.
Price,
price
cost.
Yeah, the
cost?
cost. Yeah.
So look, the the I've been in this world, okay, cybersecurity world, okay, at least protecting the end user devices. Okay, I've seen that world for about 8 or 9 years now. Okay, one of the biggest questions that I ask is whether you're going to be installing an agent on my system. And if you're
Mhm.
not installing, what kind of privileges you need to discover what's going on in my system.
Okay, so we are
Okay.
focusing on two things, like mobile phones, because mostly people are using mobile phones. Okay,
Mhm.
so for that we are just to create, like it will ask for notification listener. Okay, why we are using it? We will give the reason for that. We very clear text why we are using it. That's all. We will not even save your text information, messages, anything. We'll just capture that URL. Our model is designed to just capture the URL. Okay. On that basis, it will like respond
I'll be
you
like,
within two, three things, like through 3 seconds. Okay. Like you receive one URL in a message, like a very big message. So our model will just take that URL and within 2 seconds, it will give you the output via notification. So you don't have to do anything. For like laptop devices, we created extension for web browser. Without web browser, you can't access it. So you don't need to even copy it. You don't need to give any kind of permission. Whatever web browser you are using, it will scan it and it will give you the information like screenshot, what's the IP address, what's the server, is it using any kind of fingerprint, is it stealing your IP address, is it accessing your camera, microphone, anything. So this is how we are working.
so if you ask me on the pricing model,
Yeah.
I'll be looking at what's the cost involved, what's the profit I want to make, and based on that, I'll be looking at offering a fixed price for every customer rather than pricing it based on the number of devices they look at. Okay,
Hmm.
because the moment you start looking at device wise, it becomes a nightmare for you as a entrepreneur. Okay, to assess what's the price that I be getting, and then you will get into negotiation models. Okay,
Okay.
so my best bet is going to be to go with a fixed price model. Okay, but again, like for example, if you try to install your or if I'm your customer, okay, most of the capabilities that you're looking for or patterns you're looking for, they are all locked out.
Hmm.
Okay, I use specific browsers, okay, for specific activities. Okay, and then I don't do a lot of things on my mobile. Okay, so that way, uh, the forensics that I'm going to get from your tool is going to be very less for me as a user.
Okay.
Okay, because this is a practice that I built over the last 2 decades or 3 decades.
Okay.
From the time I got onto internet, okay, which was somewhere in 96, 95, 96 is the timeline that I had first access to internet. Okay, it was Netscape and Yahoo back then. Okay, so from then on, okay, I've been using internet very, very carefully. But before that, we used to have viruses on floppy.
Hmm.
Okay, so I have had the opportunity to play with many of those viruses.
Wow.
Like we would have hard disk disconnected and everything else disconnected from the system, and we had the privilege of booting the system with a floppy drive, okay, or a DVD drive, and then start looking at what's the pattern for the virus. Okay,
Right.
so it all depends on who is your target customer.
So my target customer is each and every user from all ages. We don't know normal user who's not from technical background. They don't understand the difference. Like
Yeah,
the if the short URL, if I'll send you the short URL, you can't detect,
I
right?
don't click short URLs
So
unless
let's
I
say,
trust.
yeah,
I
and
need to
if
trust my source.
yeah, and one more thing, what we tested as a cybersecurity, what we do is we use like Google kind of thing. Okay, where we can add a redirect.
Mhm.
So non-technical user can't even detect it. They will see, okay, it's from Google,
Yeah,
like https://google.com/ the other things.
yeah,
Okay. So even some technical background field, technical guy can't even find the difference if we
yeah.
use
That's
redirects.
being masking. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can't understand. So for that, we created this AI model. So we are targeting like old age people, students, okay, startups, and like every type of like bank employees, any employees.
So,
Oh,
okay,
mm,
few things that you need to bear in mind.
okay.
Bank employees or banks will not use your platform because they cannot have things going to the cloud.
Okay.
Okay. So the any regulated market will shy away from this. Okay. And then in many of these markets, they'll also shy away from a entrepreneur or a smaller company offering a solution.
Okay.
So this is a very, very different discussion that's going to be there. Okay, which has got
Mm-hmm.
lot more non-technical elements which are there than the
Yeah.
technical part. Okay. So we
Okay.
need to take any further discussion offline.
Okay. And like for the web pen testing model, the like workflow is very simple. Like let's say you are a startup founder. You don't have that much technical knowledge, but you are running a company. Your website is live, and you don't know about like the website is secure or not. So for that, just you have to copy the URL, paste it in our model, verify it. Like it's very important. So no one like any unauthorized person can't scan it. Just give the like verification code, and then you can proceed with it. Within few hours, you will get the result on your mail.
Okay.
Like how
So
you can mitigate it.
one other thing you want to look at is okay if McAfee or any other tools are already providing this capability because many of those tools have started looking at many of these individual end user problems
Hmm.
and then building in capabilities.
Right.
Okay. So and the more complex the EDR is, the endpoint
Great.
detection mechanism that's there. Okay, they themselves are evolving.
Hmm.
Okay, from once upon a time it being antivirus software. Okay, to doing a lot more things, and then you also have your emails.
Right.
Okay, if I'm using Gmail or Exchange, Microsoft Exchange, the capability that's built into these platforms is much higher in terms
Yeah.
of detecting uh, these spam emails or spurious emails. Okay.
Got it.
That way, um, as a technology guy, okay, I end up trusting my platforms a lot more today,
Got it.
in addition to applying my judgment.
Hmm. Got
Okay.
it.
So, since you're talking about rolling out a business, rolling out a new product, okay, you have a lot more competition. So, you need to do a SWOT analysis to
Yeah.
identify what is your niche.
Hmm. Got it.
Great. Well,
So, hmm. Like both models are totally different. So for phishing one, what you were suggesting is actually very true. So we are adding few more things in next updates. Like we'll provide more. Like you can't even detect whether the image is correct. Whatever the image or document you are receiving from even your known person, you can't say like it's secure, right? Right now, even in your file, like in your documents, in your PDF, there are some content which can actually steal your information, which will give the remote access to the hackers. So for that, we are also working on our phishing model, and for website like web pen testing model, which is totally different. So we are working. I want to know like what's your suggestion as a tech guy?
Now, I'll look. I need to understand more about this. Okay, so it's too hard to do this in a Q&A.
Got it.
Okay.
I'll get you in
Scope
touch
of
with
that,
the, yeah,
scope of this discussion is going to be much broader.
right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Thank you, Abhishek. We have Ashish and Jaswant also who have raised their hands. Ashish, you want to go first with your question? Please
Yeah,
unmute.
sure. Yeah, hey. Thanks, Harshada. Thanks, Sriharsha. Yeah. So nice topic though. A good discussion. I just have one question. Uh, you said that we should go for some big companies which are into the field for the protection and cyber security. I mean, they are more reliable than the others. But the recent attacks like on the Oracle Cloud and Microsoft Cloud Bus. So they suggest like they are they are even having a risk
Vulnerable.
of cyber threat. And my second question is around the personal front. Many times I saw that there is something called as digital arrest, and so digital arrest and other problems like social media
Mhm.
attacks, hacking of the accounts, Instagram accounts, Facebook. These are the, I think, uh, from my observation, these are some gaps which immediately should be picked up and have some solutions around. So,
So,
what is your thought?
okay, my answer to your first question, okay, when we are talking about cyber protection, I mentioned that it's not easy or it's not possible to prevent an attack. Okay, and this is like if you look at the amount of effort and the amount of technology that's implemented in either Oracle Cloud or Google or Microsoft, or for that matter, any organization, it's massive. And the number of tools that I've seen being introduced on cybersecurity side have also increased. Okay, I would say from 2015 to 2025, last decade, we have seen the capabilities as well as the number of tools dramatically increase. Okay, and at the same time, the attackers are also improving their skills. Okay, so it's a cat and mouse game that we are playing, and there's no way we can avoid that. Okay, and then if you look at the recent trend that we are seeing on this digital arrest, okay, the first time I saw digital arrest, I said this should be a common sense. Okay, the solution to this problem should be common sense and not technology or not too complicated. But when I start looking at it from a human mind perspective,
You threaten.
we go into panic mode very fast. And that's what the cyber criminals or whoever's doing this crime is taking advantage of. They try every possible way to trigger this. And one way of preventing or protecting yourself is by exposing less information about yourself. If somebody asks for Aadhaar number, okay, I need to know why. Okay, any personal information, I need to know why. Okay, you don't just hand out. You don't socialize yourself in every call that's made to you. Okay, and those are some of the practices which are there. And then if you look at today, the cellular service providers, they are doing enough from their end, okay, to flag the calls as spam, okay, the calls as, and then they are also educating us in terms of having the callback or your the ringtone, that the callback ringtone that's there, okay, coming back and then sharing information, okay, saying that don't fall for these threats. Okay, so again, I need to know whom I can trust. And I start with saying I'm not trusting anyone.
Mm.
Okay. So that's my long answer for your question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We will move to the next question, which is from Jaswant. Jaswant, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, sir. Thanks for the wonderful session. Uh, I'm not from this tech background, so I just have started my own startup. So basically, it is like I get the data from the client. I do some processing using 1, 2, 3 softwares, and I send back the data. It's a kind of outsourcing work. So basically, now we are just two employees, so it's not a big problem for us to manage because it's me and my friend. So yeah, but of course, still, how do I manage about this? If I have to set up a system, I was just trying to understand what system should be in place, especially like at least the bare minimum.
So since you talk about receiving data from your customer,
Yeah.
that's your most important asset.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then since you have multiple clients,
Yeah.
okay, you need to see how to compartmentalize.
Okay.
Keep all these data in the separate locations so that
Mhm.
in case somebody attacks your infrastructure, I'm assuming that it's in the cloud, because it's two of you. Okay, that is protected, and then you have multi-factor authentication for both of you.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you have very, very strong passwords.
Okay.
Okay, somewhere in one of the statistics, I was seeing that if you have a password which is more than 12 digits, and a
Mhm.
combination of capital letters, small letters, and then numbers as well as special characters.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a potential of somebody taking up to 400 years to crack that.
Oh.
Okay, but even there can be weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you don't post your password in post-it notes in your office. Okay,
Yeah.
this is
Understood.
this is something that I have. Every time I used to go to a client's office, I used to be watchful. Okay, because I would meet the CIO of the organization, and surrounding the CIO would be all the administrators. And many
Hmm.
of the administrators would be putting the database password or something else on the post-it. Okay, and then I've also walked into a meeting room where the password was written on the whiteboard. Okay, so those are all big no's.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then yeah, you go with multi-factor authentication, and then you go with this one, and then there's a new trend that's coming up with passcodes. Okay, so you want to see if there is something that you can enable, and then use something that's not easy to crack. Okay, um, do a data backup in a secure location
Mhm.
so that in case you lose data, okay, you should be able to restore. Okay,
Yeah.
so but ultimately you need to be paranoid about two of you and only two of you accessing the data that you
Yeah.
have, and nobody else has got permissions, and you don't use any shared passwords.
Okay.
Okay, because since you talk about two of you working, there's a possibility you have a CA or somebody else who needs access to your infrastructure.
Correct.
You may
Correct.
give a account for them, okay, which
Yeah.
has got a shared password. Okay, and that's a big no.
Oh. Oh.
Be
Okay.
watchful on that, because beyond two, you also need to look at who else has got access beyond you.
Yeah. Got it. So basically, we are planning for the scaling up. So maybe possibly we have to hire some more employees. In that case, so what should be the bare minimum platform? Like now we are
Bare,
to
bare
PMs.
minimum thing, you need to bring in the cyber awareness.
Okay.
So, because what you will implement in terms of access, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of password, yeah, this will get extended to the others as well.
Okay.
Okay, so that won't change. So this becomes your initial policy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you start extending that to everyone else, saying that this is how you work here in our organization.
Oh,
And when
God.
somebody leaves the organization, they lose all the access.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how does this work? Like, suppose I just have an idea from some other guy. Actually, what he told is, go for the virtual desktop with the cloud storage. So,
No, I won't look at virtual desktop. Okay.
okay.
Look, if you're taking any of the cloud service providers access,
Mm-hmm.
your data is always going to reside in the cloud.
Correct.
Okay, if it's GCC or Microsoft or any of these providers, it's
Mm-hmm.
always in their cloud.
Yeah.
Okay, by bringing in another virtual desktop, I'm
Mhm.
actually creating room for a hacker to gain access to that desktop.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's the threat I think of.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Because
Mhm.
if you need to access somewhere else to get into the login,
Mhm.
you don't have any mechanism to secure that.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Okay. And then we have seen it in the corporate world. Okay.
Mhm.
In Windows, there's something called remote desktop.
Correct. Yeah.
In the corporate world, that's disabled. And I
Okay.
need to have a business justification to gain access for a remote desktop.
Oh,
So
okay.
virtual desktop is going to be similar. And if there's a business reason why you need virtual desktop, like you have a call center,
Mhm.
okay, wherein you have a captive office and then from there you're accessing, then the story is different. In
Mhm.
your case, there's a good possibility of coming on the internet
Yeah.
from your homes.
Mhm.
Okay, so you want to be careful in that. So instead of that, you protect yourself with known devices, okay,
Yeah.
secure devices.
Mhm.
So if you're having a policy wherein you are going to let your employees use their own laptops or their own devices,
Yeah.
that should be exclusive and dedicated for your work.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, that will be the challenge that you have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Good. So we are about
Good round.
10 minutes over time. Munmun, we will want to host another session post we have this up on the net for others to access for deeper discussions on some tools. So I'll get in touch with you. But
Yes.
thank you so much, Sriharsha sir, and
Thank you.
we will continue this discussion in our next session.
Thank you for triggering a lot of thoughts in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you, participants. It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
It was a small group, but the questions that came up were very interesting. So, hoping to make this bigger next time we host it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.